Welcome everybody to another episode of the podcast. My name is Daniel. This is the Daniel Teacher's Experience, where we talk about the psychological concepts behind everyday events. Folks, let's talk about what happened at Travis Scott's music festival. So if you don't know, Travis Scott is this musician who had this music festival, and all you gotta know is 8 people died. Now, when you hear about 8 people dying at a music festival, what do you think of, right? You're thinking maybe drug overdose, you're thinking maybe alcohol poisoning. It could be a plethora of things, right? And I'm sure those could be involved. But a big one is, and I don't know if you folks have seen the videos, there were people taking videos of other people standing on one another. Like one person is passed out on the ground and there's people walking over him to try to get closer to the stage. So you're sitting there, you're going, well, wait a minute, Daniel, listen, music festival, 8 people died, people were drinking, people were high, people are getting stood on to the point where they can't breathe. This is crazy. How is this possible? So why are we talking about this? What's the psychology behind this? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Social Psychology. I am your host, Daniel Teaches. Let's talk about it. So the first thing that people do, and I was pretty confused by this. They went, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I can't believe so many people got hurt. And by the way, like 8 people dying at one event, like in a span of like 1 hour is pretty insane. 1 hour or a few hours. And they go, this is crazy. They go, Travis Scott, this musician's insane. How dare he not stop the concert? Like, why would you keep a concert going if you see that people need help? Folks, if I was the musician and if people were dying at my music festival, I wouldn't stop the concert. Why would I? You might think to yourself, you go, well, Daniel, people are dying. It's like, well, do I know that? Does the performer up there know that? You're saying, well, obviously, man, because he saw the ambulances, he saw the paramedics coming in. It's like, well, does seeing ambulances guarantee that there's someone dying? The answer to that is no. My next question is, do you think that we see a lot of these paramedics and ambulances at these music festivals? The answer to that is yes, like they have to be there due to legal reasons. So how can the performer distinguish if those paramedics are out there because someone's dying versus someone just had a little bit too much drink? They got to get dragged off, you know? Is it a major injury? Is it someone's hurt, someone has their bone broken because they're being stood on versus someone just twisted an ankle and they just need help leaving the crowd? If you're like me, you would say, well, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. Now imagine if you're the performer, you had a couple of shots and you're high before coming out there and you're used to seeing ambulances and stuff at music festivals. Why would you stop? I wouldn't have stopped. And I think 98% of you wouldn't have stopped the show. Now, on the audience's perspective, imagine you're at this concert and you see people not doing well. You see people lying on the ground and they're being walked on, and a lot of people just seem clueless. They've got their phones out like zombies. They're just walking forward and they're literally stepping on people to get closer to the stage. And you see people on the help flailing for help. Now, a lot of people listening to this would go, Daniel, that's insane. How could anybody do that? It's like, not to bum you out or anything, but what makes you think that me and you wouldn't do that? What makes you think that me and you wouldn't walk past someone needing help? Daniel, I could never. I'm supportive. I'm kind. Folks, I like to think of myself as a kind person. I know a little bit of first aid. I don't know if I would have helped anyone if I was there. Look, if you're in that, first of all, what we got to understand in social psychology is this. When you get into a large group, it's not Daniel, the psychology student. It's not Daniel, the guitar player, the martial arts. No. It's just, I'm a Travis Scott fan. That's what you become. That's what we all become. We are all Travis Scott fans, regardless of any other factor involved, right? Then you're taken into the experience. What does that mean? You see him, you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. The lights and the music. You kind of get, immersed in this experience. And you forget about who you are, what your morals are, definitions of right or wrong. That's why in riots and like the BLM riots and stuff, you saw people lighting cars on fire, breaking into stores, because what happens is you kind of disconnect from, I'm Daniel. I don't trespass property, I don't steal. No, I'm a BLM supporter, I'm this, I'm a writer, I'm a Travis Scott fan, we're raging, we're going wild. So you get into that mentality and the chances of you doing something crazy rise exponentially. So I honestly think if me and you were there, I don't think I would help many people. If we do what the majority of Travis Scott fans do, which is get high out of our minds, get drunk like no tomorrow, so we can barely see him, we're just going forward. Well, you're not thinking straight, man. How can we expect people to be in that environment to go, oh my God, like you should have known, like you should have helped them. You should have helped those people. It's like, dude, you're totally underestimating the importance of group psychology and what happens to our brains when we're in that environment. If you see 10 people, if there's 2 doors and you don't know which one to go through and 2 or 3 people walk through the first door, you're going to follow them. 98% of people follow. They're going to go, okay, I'm going to go through this way. I remember the first day of class, I go up to the front door and there's like 10 kids waiting outside. So I assume it's locked. I'm going, okay, well, there's 10 people waiting outside. It must be locked then. I go up, just out of curiosity. I put my hand on the doorknob. I open it. The door was open. Nobody went in. So I looked around. I said, folks, really? And then people kind of felt embarrassed and ashamed. And then someone said, well, I only waited because I saw her waiting. She said, well, I only waited because I saw him waiting. Folks, group psychology is a very real thing. So before we judge from the comfort of, I can't believe you didn't help them, I can't believe you didn't stop the concert, when you're there in the moment, it's a different story. Not to forget, man, when there's drugs and alcohol involved, everything exacerbated, right? Everything is heightened. I'm here to see Travis Scott. I flew in, I was on a 3-hour flight, I'm hungry, I just want to get to the front row, man. Oh, that guy's passed out, he probably just drank too much. Like, you're in that sort of a mindset. And if you think that you wouldn't be, don't fool yourself. Don't be so naive. From one person who cares for you, from one person who thinks he's a good person, who tries to be kind and caring and giving, man, I'm very well aware of these, what happens when you're in a group, and I'm not invincible to them. I've been susceptible to them all the time. It happens. And I think this is just an eye-opening experience to show, man, it's not so much as you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, but I think the big lesson here is to take a step back and look at the idea of what happens to us when we're in a group? How do we behave differently? 2, what happens when drugs and alcohol are involved in our decision making? And 3, just personal responsibility, man. Personal responsibility. Look, the last thing I want to do is victim blame. If you're someone who just got really, really drunk, you passed out, and there were people like stepping on you, maybe you broke a bone, that would have never happened had you not put yourself in a position to be taken advantage of. Folks, some people are going to hate me when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I've left parties sometimes walking home, and I'll see these 2 girls, can't be more than 120 pounds, short skirts, heels, they're wobbling. It's a horrific thing to say, but I think to myself, if someone wanted to take advantage of both of you, it wouldn't even be a struggle. If me, at 5'7", 140 pounds, I could do whatever I wanted to those 2 girls. And there's nothing they could do to stop me. In those high heels and their short shorts, they're stumbling, they have no balance. So imagine if I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, and I'm kind of sick in the head, right? Oh, Dana, why are you victim blaming? Man, look, there's victim blaming, and then there's just having some common sense. You know, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying girls shouldn't drink. I'm not saying, oh, well, instead of telling girls not to drink, you should tell people not to sexually assault. It's like, dude, that's not that's a discussion for a different video. The reason I bring that up is just to say, folks, we got to take a little bit of accountability into where we put ourselves, right? It's not your fault that something bad happened to you, but were you walking home late night in an alley all by yourself, without a phone, without anything on you, with earbuds in? Like, at what point do you go, dude, like, you gotta open up your eyes. You gotta be self-aware, right? Anyways, so that's one big reason why, I'm not big into drinking. I don't smoke, and I don't tell people this often because, oh man, Daniel's paranoid. Dude, imagine you're at that festival. Maybe you know some first aid, maybe you don't. Someone needs CPR because they're not breathing. You got about 4 minutes before they suffer permanent brain damage, closer to 6 minutes and they're dead. You think your chest compressions are gonna be up to snap? You think if they can find you an AED, you can hook it up to him? You think you'll remember to check his breathing and you'll tilt his head up enough so his tongue doesn't block his airway? You think you'll give him the right amount of breaths? If you're super drunk, if you're high, there's people around you, if people are bumping into you, you got 4 minutes, son. Good luck. That's all I'll say. Maybe you're better than me, and it's entirely possible. I don't think I could. There's no way that if I'm drinking or if I was high, I could be at the level. If I'm good and I'm sharp and I'm clear and I'm there. I want to give you folks 2 stories. One of them is my personal anecdote. One of them is the study. So the study was this. They were going to bring one participant into a room. And in that room, there would be 4 people already. 1 person in a suit and 3 other participants, right? With the 1 participant, we'll call him A. What A doesn't know is that the 3 other wink wink participants are actually part of the study. They're in on the clue, they know what's going on. So A is the only actual participant. Everybody else in the room, the 3 that are beside him and the 1 other guy in the suit, they're in on it. The guy in the suit puts out 3 lines, right? And they're just vertical lines, or maybe he draws them on a piece of paper. And he says, which of these lines are longer? Like, which is the longest line out of these three? It's not a trick question. You look at it, there's clearly one line that's drawn longer than the others, right? Immediately, it's very easy to tell which one's the longest one. Now, the guy in the suit asks participant A, so the real participant, last about which one he thinks is the longest. He first begins to ask everyone else. So he asks the first wink wink participant, and all the other participants are going to say the middle line. So there's three lines. There's the tallest line, there's like a middle line, and there's the shortest line. All the three participants are going to say the middle line. And we're going to see if those participants saying this line are going to mess with the actual participant so that he goes against his own eyes and his own logic and reasoning, and he picks the line that the other people picked in the room. Lo and behold, one of those like fake participants says, yep, like the middle line's the longest. And you look at participant A and he looks shocked. And he's looking at it and you could see him, he's trying to figure out like, what the hell, like longest? Like, did he misunderstand the question? And the second participant says, yep, that is the longest one. He also looks at the middle one. And again, you see participant A, the real guy, going, like, this is crazy. Like, this is insane. Like, I must not be getting something. Participant 3, the fake one, says the same thing. And when it gets to the actual participant, he says, I agree with all of them. This line is the tallest one. This is the longest one. Even though he clearly sees with his eyes, and to all of us watching the video at home, that line is only the middle line. It's not the longest line. They did this several times with several different people of different ages, with different personality types, different ethnicities. 75% of the people, 3 out of 4 people, picked the line that the 3 people before them picked. That means, hypothetically, if they brought 100 people in, 75 people picked the line that the other, or so what they thought, participants chose was the longest line. Why? Just because they did. And they assumed that they were wrong. Say, well, I mean, 3 people said this. And, well, clearly, I mean, it's my opinion versus 3 people's opinion, so they must be right. So that can paint you a little bit of a picture of how much we uphold other people's opinions and what groupthink does to us. Here's another personal example. It's about 11:30 at night. It's about midnight, and I'm driving home from working out. And I'm at this red light. And it's cold out. And usually when I'm coming home from working out, I'm tired, and I just can't wait to get home. I can't wait to take a shower. I'm sweaty, I'm sore, I'm bruised up a little. And I remember I'm looking up at the red light, I'm listening to music. I started looking around, and it's 11:30, 12, so you don't see much, right? You don't expect to see much. You see a pole, you see trees. I look to my left, and I see a guy passed out on the ground. He looked maybe a student. He was Asian. He passed out on the ground like he's lying on his back. And his friend is kneeling beside him. And he's got his hand on his chest. He's going, hey, buddy, wake up. We got to go home. Hey, wake up, right? In that split-second decision, I go, oh, my God, I think he needs help. I put the car on the shoulder of the road, as they call it. I get out of the car, and I say, hey, man, I go, you need help? I know some first aid. Can I help? And the guy who's kneeling says, oh, no, he's just been drinking too much. He just passed out. Like, we're all good. And I go, okay. I remember I get back in the car, and I'm driving away, and I'm thinking, man, like, thank God he was only drunk, I thank God it wasn't anything more than that. A few weeks later, I'm driving again. This time it's during the day. I'm in downtown. I'm at a red light. I look over to the left, and I see this homeless guy, and he's lying on his back flat. I didn't think anything of it. The light turns green. I put my foot on the gas. I'm gone. A few minutes later, I'm driving. I'm going, was that homeless guy passed out because he was drunk or on drugs? How do I know he wasn't dead? How do I know he wasn't breathing? I just assumed that he was drunk or high and he was just taking a nap. Folks, I could have saved someone's life that day. I don't know if he died. I don't know. He might have just been taking a nap. But the fact is, I didn't know. It was a 50-50 and I took a chance. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't in a rush. I didn't have anywhere I had to be. I had my pocket mask on me. This is coming from someone who's worked as a lifeguard for 4 or 5 years. And I just drove by as if he's not a human being that may have needed help. Folks, it's one thing if you say, I don't know how to help, which is complete BS. I don't care if you don't know a lick of first aid, man. If you see someone and if you think it looks bad, if you feel comfortable, if it's safe without putting yourself in danger, man, just call 911. Hey, man, I'm seeing someone's passed out here. I'm a little afraid. I don't want to go over to him, but can you guys just come to check up on him, see if he's okay? I'm not sure if he's alive or not. I don't know if he's breathing or not, right? If you don't feel comfortable going over to him. So anybody can do that. And please, 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 if you don't know any first aid, just call 911. I've done a lot of these lifeguard training courses where you're going through the training, you do everything perfect, you tilt back the head, AED, good, blanket, you assess everything's great. Someone forgets to call 911. And then you fail the training because we're so into this mindset of you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to get the first aid, you got to watch out for his head, that you forget to do not arguably, hands down the most important thing. Because all you want to do is, you're not a doctor, you're not a paramedic, you don't need to save his life. You just need to maintain it until the ambulance shows up, until the paramedics can show up, and then they can take him to the doctors and they can actually help him out. So that idea of, I didn't know how to help, BS. If you got a phone, you can call 911. But again, from someone who not only has a phone, could have called 911, knows some first aid, I know how to check for breathing, I know to tilt back the head, I know to check the pulse and airway, and I didn't. Like, it didn't, and until I was really thinking about that. I was like, man, like, what if that guy was dying? And I didn't even think twice. And then it occurred to me, like, how many people drove past him? Because it wasn't, there were cars in front of me, there were cars behind me. What if that man was dying and 10 to 15 cars all drove past him? Now you want to talk about, oh man, I'm such a kind person. Look, folks, I think I'm a good guy. I like to think so. I like to think I'm kind and caring and I want to help people. But that idea of, just getting used to seeing people who are drunk or who are high and who are just like napping or just laying down, I just assumed he was laying down, and he could have been. The idea here is, I don't know what happened to him, but that's the problem, in my opinion. I got no idea if that man's alive right now. I don't know. And I don't know how to reconcile that. But I understand the psychology behind it. There's a joke about psychology students. They're like, dude, psychology students can't be depressed, right? Just look at your notes, right? But there's this little thing that I go like, man, how do you... I know why I left, and I know there wasn't any harm or intent behind it, but it was like, dude, like, if he was dying, I could have saved his life. Again, hopefully, knock on wood, he wasn't, but I want to give you that example to show you how easy it is to not want to help someone, to not understand the severity of a situation. Now, I was sober, well-minded, sharp, and good to go. Imagine if I'm drunk, imagine if I'm high, imagine if I've got my buddies with me as I'm looking over, someone's like, hey, Daniel, come check out this Instagram post. Do you see what I mean? Here's another story. There was a girl that was getting sexually assaulted for about, I want to say 45 minutes. For 45 minutes to an hour in the middle of the street at night, maybe 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. She works at a bar, so she was coming home late. And this was going on for close to an hour. She was screaming. She called for help. Nobody came. And nobody called the police. The police eventually shows up. Oh, excuse me, I think someone eventually did, but it was, I don't know why they ended up coming, but it was long after the guy had came and left. The police shows up. They go to all the doors, all the apartments, the neighbors. I don't know if I've told this story before. And they found about 5 or 6 different households that had all heard her calling for help. And the officer goes, why on God's earth did you not call the police? And he said, well, she's already been yelling for 5 or 10 minutes. I thought my neighbor had obviously called because I saw his lights go on. And then they won't go to the neighbor. They go, why didn't you call the police? He said, well, I've already been hearing it for 15 minutes. I thought the police had already been called. I thought clearly I wasn't the only person to hear it. Obviously, one of my neighbors must have already called. Nobody called the cops. That woman was sexually assaulted for damn near 45 minutes, and nobody called the cops. Is it because they're bad people? They thought that the other person was going to do it. That's why if you're ever in a first aid scenario, one of the things that they teach you in the trainings is, let's say if I'm going over someone's unconscious, if I need something, I'm not going to say, someone call 911, because who the hell is someone, right? If you're standing in the crowd, you're like, well, I'm not someone. And the person besides you is like, well, I'm not someone either, right? So you individualize people. You call them, you go, hey, you in the red sweater, what's your name? Janet, I need you to call 911, tell them we have an unconscious person, they're not breathing. Can you do that for me? Great. Hey, what's your name? Tim, I need you to find me an AED. So what you do is you individualize them. It's not someone, somebody get me, the phone, somebody grab me. Be careful, be very careful, because we're so easy to go, well, okay. It's not that you don't want to, but it's just, there's a confusion of who is that responsibility on, right? Because we're all equal. I'm just another Travis Scott fan. I'm just another observer. right? I'm just another neighbor, right? So who does that responsibility fall into? So if you're in that position, what you want to do is you want to individualize people. And that way they can remember, like, oh, I'm not just an observer. I'm Janet. I'm kind. I'm this. Because once you call them by their name, once you say, hey, you in the blue jeans, you're calling them out. And when you do that, people can take more personal responsibility. So it's good. So with those analogies that I gave you, the line one, my own with the homeless guy, and the sexual assault one, now when you think about that festival, it's like, I'm not surprised, guys and gals. I'm really not. And is it sad? It's absolutely sad. But if you're the performer, you know, maybe you're high, maybe you're drunk, or sure, paramedics show up, sure, someone just drank too much, whatever, you know. I mean, I gotta admit, you gotta be really effed up to be walking on people and to not like look down and realize it, or to realize it and to not care. But I promise you, it was a mixture. It was a mixture of the drinks. It was a mixture of the smoking. It was a mixture of, God knows, man. Look, I'm really hard on like beer and marijuana. When I say drugs, guys, I don't just mean weed. And yes, smoking a lot of weed, man, it could slow down your central nervous system. It slows down your brain functioning. But what I really mean is the people who, I'm not talking about the dude who smokes, you know, a little bit, or drinks one beer. I'm talking about the dude who's had 10 shots of tequila. I'm talking about the guys who are doing LSD, ecstasy. They're not there, you know. God knows what other people do at music festivals, man. I don't know if they do syringes or heroin, man. You got no idea what people are there, what people bring. So it didn't surprise me at all, right? So when we say, oh man, this is terrible, I can't believe how people did that, it's like, I can. I really can. You know, it's dark out. People are lying on the ground. If I was at that music festival, what stops me from looking at a person on the ground and thinking, oh, they're probably just drunk or passed out? Because what if you see 4 or 5 people who are drunk or passed out during the day? You just see another person lying on the ground. You know, how can you differentiate this guy really needs help versus he's just taking a nap? You know, and the people who are there, and there were some people who started, I don't know what, I only got a little bit of news about it. I don't know if they were chanting stop the show, if they tried to get up on stage to tell the performer or try to tell the security guard, hey man, stop the show, there are people dying. I think it was just a really brutal depiction of what happens when we're in a group, of what happens when people aren't thinking straight and logically. And this is going to be one of those things where people look at it and they go, I can't believe this happened. Like, how did this happen? Whereas if you watch this episode, not that you give it as an excuse, so okay, I guess we should expect people to die at these things, but you understand how easy it is for something like this to happen. Man, again, I don't find it weird to me. I mean, it's horrific that people died. It's a weird thing to think about, people standing on other people to get closer to the line so you can take a goofy ass Instagram video so you can put it on Instagram so you can make your friends jealous. But when drugs are involved and alcohol is involved and that kind of group-like mentality, if 5 people go forward, man, you're just going to follow them. And the lights are on your face and it's dark out and you're walking and maybe by the time you find out that you're stepping on someone, you take your foot off and like, oh, sorry, man, you just cracked his rib. And maybe you're trying to find your friend and it's chaotic and you're elbowing people. And again, folks, we got to have a good conversation. This might be another episode. Where does victim blaming end and where does taking personal responsibility begin? As a performer, at what point do you go, man, if you see an ambulance, maybe I should stop the concert. I don't care if it's just alcohol, right? If I see people who are crowding the ambulance, if I've got the microphone, I'll tell the DJ, hey man, turn off the music. I'll tell the fans, hey man, if you don't want to get kicked out of here, back off from the ambulance. Give them some room, let them come out. What's going on? Someone tell me what's going on. Is he just laying there drunk or is he dying, right? If I'm going to a festival, chances are I'm probably not drinking. Or if I am, very rarely, right? I wouldn't, because I want to be in that sober mind. But things happen, man. Things happen, and it's so unbelievably easy for things to go wrong. And the takeaway is this. 8 people died at a music festival. 8 young people, or so I think they're young, but I'm just imagining. I don't actually know who died because I didn't want to look into it. Because I've just, man, so you don't care about who. Folks, when all day, every day, you're reading about suicide, sexual assault, trauma. It just, at one point, you just hear the headline, you just go, oh man, like I can only read so much. The point isn't The point here is there were people who died without their consent. There were people who were meant to have a greater future, who were meant to go on and do other things. Maybe they were students, maybe they were fathers, maybe they were boyfriends and girlfriends. You know, they had people who were counting on them. They had other things going on in their lives, and they had their lives taken away. I think that's sad. I think out of all the ways that you could die, that's just a sad way to die. Some poor 22-year-old at a concert somewhere went out because his friends told him to, maybe had a little bit too much to drink. Due to no fault of his own, people behind him are trying to get to the front. They push him, he falls. As he's trying to get up, people are stepping on him. You know, and maybe he's so drunk that his legs are shaking and he can't stand up. And people are walking on him. Now he's breaking his bones. People are stepping on the back of his head. Maybe he can't get up now. He's finding it hard to breathe. As he goes to inhale, his diaphragm, his chest can't contract as it used to. And he suffocates to death. This young man or woman that was supposed to grow old, become a parent, get a job, contribute to society, they had their life taken away. Why? Did they deserve it? Was that God's plan for them? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Sometimes things just happen. You're at the wrong place at the wrong time, and there's several factors. The only thing that I really wanted to encourage in this talk today was to be careful before you blame one person. Because if we're looking at a collective event, or like a collective event where there's a group of people involved, it's very hard to judge them individually, right? And this is speaking from someone who is a fan of psychology, right? There's a reason why I'm not in sociology. I like looking at the individual, and yet this is a sort of situation where you got to take it all into account. It's not just the performer. It's not just the fans. I feel so bad for those paramedics, man, trying to get through and help those poor people out. While the crowd doesn't care. They're not giving you any space. They're elbowing you. It's dark. Clearly, I would have to imagine understaffed. So when you're looking at those perspectives, always remind yourself, what would it be like to be there under those lights with that music? It's dark. Maybe you're drinking, maybe you aren't. Maybe you're smoking, maybe you're not. Maybe with your girlfriend, maybe you just had a fight. Maybe she's lost. Maybe she's in the front row. You're just trying to get through. So play all that out, because I promise you're going to get a different story like that than sitting at home on your couch going, oh man, these idiots, I can't believe they would do such a thing. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I know that this one was pretty dark, but it's important to be talked about. And I think that there's psychology all around us. And this music festival, this music event where unfortunately people lost their lives, was a brilliant depiction of how dangerous groupthink can be and what can happen when we're around other people, and how that changes us and that changes our decision making. And on this occasion, it took people's lives. So let's just be careful when we're out there, and let's be aware of these things. Thank you so much for listening, folks. My name is Daniel. This is Daniel Teaches. As always, this is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for commenting and for liking. I wish you all the absolute best, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.